Nobody leaves this business clean. Yeah, I had problems with the writers all the time on that show. The show was about two young, black, talented individuals. 12 writers that have no idea what it is to be a young black male. So when table read comes, me and Malcolm got to tweak the script, but we ain't getting the writing credit.
Remember Eddie Griffin? The reason he disappeared from Hollywood wasn't about talent or luck.
There's no criminal charge.
There is a systematic effort to destroy every black male entertainer's image.
It was about speaking truths that Hollywood couldn't afford to let him keep telling.
I'm sure that pissed Hollywood off, and then they started doing it because, you know, they said, okay, this is a smart mother.
But the story of how Eddie's independence became Hollywood's biggest threat started with a $50 bet in Kansas City. Eddie Griffin walked into Stanford & Sons Comedy Club completely broke. The 19-year-old had just been kicked out of the Navy after 1 year for refusing to do push-ups when they stationed him in Meridian, Mississippi, instead of sending him overseas like the commercials promised. His biological engineering scholarship at Kansas State University had led nowhere after he left school. He was working 3 dead-end jobs in Kansas City and sleeping standing up because he had nowhere to lie down. His cousin Curtis had been needling him all evening about how unfunny the comedians were compared to Griffin's natural humor on the streets. They were bar hopping with fake IDs, drinking and talking trash about everything they saw. When they walked into Stanford & Sons, Griffin watched one dry comedian after another fail to connect with the sparse crowd. The performances were so lackluster that Curtis couldn't contain himself anymore.
So my cousin like, you funny these mother we just hanging out on the block. He said, I bet you $50 you gonna get your black up there. I was broken and mother and I ain't never been on stage talking, you know.
Griffin stared at his empty wallet. $50 represented real money when you were surviving on minimum wage from multiple jobs. But something deeper than desperation was driving him. He had won every talent show he'd ever entered with his dancing and locking routines, but he'd never talked in front of an audience. The combination of alcohol, broke circumstances, and wounded pride from his recent failures created a perfect storm of reckless courage. Griffin walked over to the club manager and asked for 5 minutes. The man handed him the microphone without much interest, probably figuring this young kid would flame out like most first-timers. What happened next revealed the fearless streak that would eventually make Griffin unemployable in Hollywood's carefully controlled system. Griffin stepped on stage and forgot about the 5-minute limit entirely. He started talking about his family, his experiences growing up black in Kansas City, his frustrations with the Navy and college. The stories poured out of him in a way that felt completely natural but utterly unpredictable. He wasn't following any comedy formula or trying to hit expected punchlines. He was just being honest about his life in a way that somehow became hilarious. The audience response was electric. People who had been sitting politely through mediocre acts were suddenly on their feet screaming. Griffin had found something authentic that connected with them immediately. 45 minutes later, he finally left the stage to thunderous applause, but the club manager was furious.
They banned me from the club.
Why did they ban you from the club?
They said I was a little too blue for their taste. I didn't understand what the blue meant.
The rejection taught Griffin his first crucial lesson about the entertainment industry. They wanted his talent, but only if he stayed within their predetermined boundaries. Being too blue meant being too real, too honest, too willing to say things that made comfortable people uncomfortable. Griffin had succeeded by being completely himself, and that authenticity was exactly what they wanted to eliminate. The strategy worked perfectly. Within 9 months, Griffin was packing houses at venues across Kansas City. He had built his own comedy circuit, developed his own audience, and achieved success completely outside the traditional club system that had rejected him. His entrepreneurial approach to comedy was already demonstrating the independence that would later threaten Hollywood's control mechanisms. When Marsha Warfield came to town, she watched Griffin open for her and delivered life-changing advice.
So Marsha told me, look here, you little black mother, you need to get out of this city. You need to take your ass to LA or New York. You're too funny for this.
Griffin's mother gave him the final push, telling him he was a big fish in a small pond. Time to swim in the ocean and see if he was actually a whale. What Griffin didn't realize was that Los Angeles would teach him even harsher lessons about refusing to play by the rules. Griffin's Greyhound bus pulled into Los Angeles with him carrying everything he owned in a single bag. The city welcomed him with absolute indifference. He spent his first month literally sleeping standing up on the streets because he refused to go back to his uncle's house in Compton. Even homeless, Griffin was making choices that prioritized his artistic goals over his personal comfort. The hustle was relentless. Griffin worked 3 jobs simultaneously, washing dishes at Goog's restaurant during the day, serving pizza at Tony's inside the Bonaventure Hotel at night, and doing security at a Fleabag hotel after his first paycheck. He was sleeping maybe 2 or 3 hours a night, but something was driving him that went beyond just survival.
I had 3 jobs. I worked at, it was this restaurant down there called Googie's Restaurant. I'd work there during the day. Then I'd work at Tony's Pizzeria. Yeah, I mean, I still see Tony from time to time.
Griffin's breakthrough at the Comedy Store came through the same audacity that had gotten him banned in Kansas City. He found a copy of Dramalog magazine, saw they were looking for showcase acts with major club experience, and decided to lie his way in. Calling from a payphone outside the club, Griffin pretended to be his own manager and rattled off fake credits from comedy clubs across the nation. They scheduled him that same night. Griffin walked in like he belonged there, performed his Michael Jackson on crack routine, and had Mitzi Shore offering him a job within minutes of leaving the stage.
I got off stage and Mitzi Shore walked up to me. She's like, oh my God, you got more time, you're pinking than anybody seen in 10 years. You want to work for me?
Shore put Griffin up at Crest Hill, her mansion where she housed promising comedians. He had gone from sleeping on the streets to living in a Hollywood Hills mansion. But the real education was just beginning. Living alongside other comedians, Griffin started learning how the business really worked, and more importantly, how dangerous it was to be too independent. At Crest Hill Mansion, Griffin watched Andrew Dice Clay arrive at the height of his controversial fame. Clay was looking for an opening act for his massive tour, and every comedian in the house desperately wanted that gig. Griffin took a completely different approach that revealed the rebellious streak that would eventually destroy his mainstream career. Instead of auditioning with safe material, Griffin performed an impersonation of Andrew Dice Clay as a homosexual. The bit was so boldly offensive that everyone expected a violent confrontation. Clay's reaction taught Griffin a crucial lesson about power dynamics in entertainment.
So this motherfucker sitting there, I get off stage, he walk up to me, I'm taking my jacket off because I think I got to scrap with this motherfucker. He said, no, it ain't nothing like that. You funny, right?
Clay hired Griffin immediately for the tour, despite Griffin having only 9 months of comedy experience. The first show was Providence, Rhode Island. 30,000 white people, with Griffin as the only black person in the building. Watching Bill Sheff get destroyed by the hostile crowd, Griffin developed a strategy that would define his entire approach to entertainment.
So he supposed to do 15 minutes. It's funny they was saying. He condensed 15 minutes into 4 minutes. Didn't miss an inflection, because they was throwing at this motherfucker. You can see on the Jumbotron, the candy, everything.
Griffin told the sound man to play specific music during his introduction. When they announced him, he came out breakdancing, immediately seizing control of the crowd's energy. He made 30,000 white people chant along with him, then performed for 30 minutes, leaving them on their feet. Clay was running around backstage calling Griffin a future superstar. But Griffin was learning something that would prove deadly to his career. Success in entertainment wasn't just about talent. It was about understanding psychology, manipulation, and control. More dangerously, Griffin was discovering that he was naturally gifted at seeing through the industry's power structures. This insight would serve him well initially, but eventually make him too dangerous to employ. Griffin's television success with Malcolm and Eddie should have been the beginning of a long, profitable Hollywood career. The show ran for 4 seasons, established him as a bankable sitcom star, and positioned him perfectly for the next level of opportunities. Instead, the experience taught Griffin lessons about how the industry really operated that he would never be able to keep quiet about. Behind the cameras of Malcolm and Eddie, Griffin discovered something that would eventually fuel his most damaging public statements. The show about 2 young black men was being written almost entirely by white writers who had no understanding of the experiences they were portraying. Griffin found himself in the surreal position of performing artificial constructions of black life created by people who had never lived it.
12 writers that have no idea what it is to be a young black male. So when table read comes, me and Malcolm got to tweak the script, but we ain't getting the writing credit.
This revelation connected to Griffin's broader understanding of UPN's business model. The network positioned itself as the home for black television, using that branding to attract both black audiences and advertisers. But once UPN had established its value through black talent and viewership, it would be sold to larger corporate interests, with the original performers having no equity in what they had built. Griffin's analysis was so precise, it was dangerous. He had identified the systematic exploitation at the heart of the industry, and he couldn't resist talking about it. When Master P walked into that restaurant on Sunset Boulevard, Griffin saw an opportunity to prove his theories about black independence in entertainment. Master P approached Griffin with a proposition that seemed impossible. Hollywood wasn't giving Griffin proper opportunities to star in films, P said. Did Griffin have any script? Griffin retrieved the script for Foolish and watched Master P read it at the table, then write him a check for $1 million on the spot.
So, brought it back and handed it to the gave me a check for $1 million.
Master P gave you a check for $1 million.
For the script.
For the script.
I was a writing mother.
They made Foolish completely independently, distributing it like Master P distributed his music, grassroots, street level, directly to audiences that Hollywood ignored. Opening weekend, despite playing in only 700 theaters against Star Wars Episode I, Foolish beat the mega-budget blockbuster in per-screen average. The success of Foolish proved everything Griffin had been saying about black creative independence. It also marked the beginning of his systematic exclusion from major studio projects. Griffin had committed the ultimate Hollywood sin, demonstrating that the traditional power structure wasn't necessary. The industry's response would be swift, subtle, and devastating. By the time Bill Cosby faced his first criminal charges, Griffin had been watching the pattern play out for years. Opportunities that should have materialized after Foolish's success had instead gone to other comedians. Projects that seemed perfect for Griffin's talents somehow found their way to performers who hadn't threatened the established order. When Hollywood celebrities ran for cover during the Cosby scandal, Griffin made the choice that would end any possibility of redemption in the industry. Griffin didn't just defend Cosby. He connected the allegations to a systematic pattern of character assassination, targeting successful black male entertainers who had become too powerful or independent. His analysis was so precise and damaging that it effectively ended his Hollywood career forever.
There's no criminal charge.
There is a systematic effort to destroy every black male entertainer's image.
Griffin listed the casualties: Kobe Bryant, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Bill Cosby. The pattern was too consistent to be coincidental, and Griffin had the industry knowledge to explain exactly how the machinery of character assassination operated. But he crossed the line when he made the comparison that Hollywood could never forgive.
Let's talk about this little motherfucking white boy who's a known motherfucking pedophile, the director, that escaped overseas. What's that mother name?
Roman Polanski?
Yeah, I don't see them with that mother.
Griffin had named the double standard that everyone in Hollywood understood, but nobody discussed publicly. Roman Polanski, a white filmmaker convicted of unlawful sex with a minor who fled the country, continued making acclaimed films and winning awards, while black entertainers faced career destruction over allegations. Speaking this truth made Griffin untouchable. The Michael Jackson defense sealed his fate completely. Griffin revealed that he had been the only celebrity to attend Jackson's first court appearance, riding in the limo with the Jackson family, and providing moral support when other stars abandoned Michael entirely.
And he walked out, jumped on top of the SUV and started dancing for the fans.
I remember that.
The judge was mad, talking about we late. If there's 10,000 people on the street, we in the car, we on time, we can't get through the mother till the police show up and move the crowd out.
Griffin had positioned himself as someone willing to support fallen black celebrities while criticizing the industry's racist treatment of them. He had chosen truth over career survival, and the consequences would manifest in the most public and humiliating ways possible. The Ferrari Enzo crash at Irwindale Speedway wasn't just an accident. It was the visible symbol of how far Eddie Griffin had fallen.
Now, I told them I couldn't drive from Jump Street. You know, we was doing this celebrity charity race, right? It's me, Wycliffe.
He was promoting Redline, a low-budget action film that represented the type of project he was now limited to after being effectively blacklisted from major studios. The fact that he was willing to risk his life in an unfamiliar supercar demonstrated how few legitimate opportunities remained available to him. During the practice run, Griffin hit the gas pedal instead of the brake. The $1.5 million Ferrari launched forward completely out of control, slamming into a concrete barrier with devastating force. Somehow, Griffin walked away unharmed, but the car was reduced to expensive scrap metal. The crash became a media sensation that overshadowed the real story. Griffin was participating in increasingly dangerous promotional stunts because his access to traditional marketing platforms had been severed.
It appears Griffin is okay, and he just joked about it to the cameras after it happened.
Undercover brother's good at karate and all the rest of that, but brother can't drive.
2 years later, VH1 premiered Eddie Griffin, Going for Broke, a reality series that documented the financial consequences of his industry exile. The show revealed Griffin struggling to manage mounting debts while supporting extended family members who had depended on his income during his successful years. His generosity had become a crushing liability in his reduced circumstances. The program portrayed Griffin as someone who had made poor financial decisions, but the real story was buried beneath that narrative. The show focused on Griffin's personal failings, rather than investigating why a previously successful performer suddenly couldn't get work in Hollywood. This framing protected the industry while destroying what remained of Griffin's reputation.
I was broken and mother nigga. And I ain't never been on stage talking. You know, I boogalooed and locked and all that and won every talent show motherfuckers ever in. But never talked in front of audience.
Critics noted that while Griffin's charitable impulses seemed genuine, his inability to set boundaries had created an unsustainable situation. But they missed the crucial context. Griffin was trying to maintain his obligations from when he was earning millions, while the industry had systematically cut off his access to those same earning opportunities. The Ferrari crash and financial struggles became symbols of his reckless behavior rather than evidence of systematic exclusion. The reality show served multiple purposes for the network. It generated ratings through the spectacle of a formerly successful comedian's downfall, while reinforcing narratives about black entertainers being irresponsible with money. Most importantly, it allowed viewers to feel superior to Griffin's poor decisions without examining the industry practices that had created his desperate circumstances. The Saks Theater at Planet Hollywood has become Eddie Griffin's final destination. Night after night, he takes the stage in Las Vegas, performing for tourists who have no idea they're watching a man who once challenged the entire entertainment industry and lost everything for it. His current residency represents both survival and surrender. He can still work, but only in exile from the power centers that once courted his talent.
Griffin's Las Vegas shows have become increasingly controversial, drawing reviews that paint him as an angry, bitter performer who drinks during his sets and attacks audience members who don't appreciate his material.
Welcome to Las Vegas. If you just got here, it's the only city you can see dead people walking down the street.
The phone-free policy at his shows reveals Griffin's awareness that his current material could destroy what remains of his reputation if it spread beyond the Vegas theater. Audience members are forced to lock their phones in bags before entering, ensuring that Griffin's most inflammatory statements stay contained within the walls of the Saks Theater. But the reviews still get out, painting a picture of a performer who has completely abandoned any attempt at mainstream acceptance.
Some nights, Griffin acknowledges his own situation with bitter humor.
He tells audiences that he's been doing the same Vegas show for 20 years, recycling old material that he once performed for free. He seems tired, defeated, going through the motions of a career that ended long before he accepted it. The man who once packed houses nationwide now struggles to fill a 300-seat theater in a city built on forgotten dreams.
But Griffin's political evolution has taken an unexpected turn that would have shocked his younger self. After spending years criticizing the entertainment industry's treatment of black performers, Griffin has embraced Donald Trump and attended events at Mar-a-Lago. His recent appearances defending Trump and attacking Kamala Harris represent a complete reversal from his earlier political positions.
I'm going with Lion Larry. That smart enough to create a lie. That Biden is dead.
Griffin's Trump support isn't based on traditional conservative ideology. Instead, it reflects the worldview of someone who has lost faith in all established institutions. Having watched Hollywood systematically destroy black entertainers who became inconvenient, Griffin sees Trump as an outsider who shares his contempt for the existing power structure. His political transformation mirrors his personal journey from industry insider to permanent exile. The comedian who once defended Bill Cosby and Michael Jackson against what he saw as systematic character assassination now finds himself defending a completely different figure. Griffin's support for Trump represents the final stage of his alienation from the entertainment industry that once celebrated him. He has become the enemy of his former allies and an unlikely champion of causes he once opposed. Griffin's current situation perfectly validates his earlier warnings about how the industry operates. His systematic exclusion from major projects, financial destruction through reality television exploitation, and reduction to performing in a Las Vegas theater all followed the pattern he had identified years earlier. The difference is that Griffin now understands he will never be welcomed back into the system he spent decades exposing. The $50 bet in Kansas City had led Griffin to discover truths about power and control in entertainment that cost him everything. His journey from sleeping on LA streets to Hollywood success to Vegas exile demonstrates exactly how the industry punishes performers who refuse to stay silent about its operations. Griffin sits in that theater night after night, a living example of what happens when talent meets truth-telling in a system built on carefully maintained lies. The tragedy isn't that Eddie Griffin disappeared from mainstream entertainment. The tragedy is that his exile proves every warning he ever gave about the cost of independence in Hollywood. He remains on stage, still performing, still speaking uncomfortable truths, but safely quarantined, where his message can't threaten the system that destroyed him. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.